Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Hard Count podcast. And as you can tell, not just any Hard Count podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Evan, Into Sports. Welcome. And if you are a big Hard Count fan, if you've been here for a while, you know who Evan is. He's been on several of my podcasts. He does a great job. Go check him out at Into Sports. I will leave the link to his channel in the description. But we're here to talk about some big topics from the past week of football and a little bit about the draft too. So if you're excited for that, get ready to sit back, relax, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. We're here to talk. So, yep. And let's get right into it starting with congratulating the teams that won this past weekend, the Bills, the Packers, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers, who are going on to move on to their conference championship games. That is big for these teams. So congratulations to them. They get a chance to play for the Super Bowl. Excited for those games. I'm sure you guys are too. But with our first segment, we're actually going to be talking about a team that lost this past weekend and a specific player on that team. It's the Baltimore Ravens. It's Lamar Jackson. They did not perform to the level we were hoping this past weekend. Their offense put up 3 points against this Bills defense. It was not a good performance, most notably the Lamar Jackson pick six, which essentially cost them the game. So my major question here for you, Evan, is, are we worried about Lamar Jackson? Are you worried about Lamar Jackson?
Yes, I am worried about Lamar Jackson. Now let me start by saying this. I'm not worried about Lamar Jackson when you compare him to a guy like Jared Goff. Obviously, I'm taking Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is a top 10 quarterback. But Spencer, you said there's 6 superstar quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and Lamar Jackson's one of them. So now I have the right to compare him to a guy like Patrick Mahomes, to a guy like Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. And I'm very worried in that sense. Because, like Russell Westbrook, Giannis Antetokounmpo, in the NBA, these guys play in one gear. When Russell Westbrook can't get to the rim and attack the basket, he doesn't have a jump shot to fall back on. And Russell Westbrook, when the Ravens can't bully people with their offensive line and run game, he doesn't have a great clean pocket passing game and accuracy and just not a great thrower from the pocket. I like his ability to run around, extend plays, but he doesn't have that clean pocket ability to fall back on to win playoff games.
Yeah,
that's why
I'm going to agree with you. I think you were expecting me to come on here and say, oh, Lamar, they're going to be just fine. But this is why I'm concerned about both Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And I think both of these apply to what you're saying. I think part of the reason, not only Lamar Jackson is not the most comfortable in terms of dropping back and passing, I think he can do that relatively well. But the Ravens also aren't putting him in a position to succeed. They don't have the receivers. He's honestly been under pressure much more quickly this season. I know they've lost Ronnie Stanley. They've had some struggles on the interior offensive line. And so this offense is just not built to win right now in the playoffs because they right now as a team, when they get off kilter, cannot pass. They cannot do things like that. And one of my biggest issues with Lamar Jackson is, exactly what we're saying. He kind of gets flustered and he will make a bad decision which is sometimes caused by what's around him, but he cannot make those decisions either. Those cost them the game. So I agree with you in the sentiment that he needs to step things up as a passer. And I'm worried about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson because, one, Lamar Jackson is not the best passer. He has struggled a little bit more in games where he needs to step back and pass from a clean pocket or even not from a clean pocket. And also the Ravens aren't putting him in a position to succeed from a clean pocket either.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a Lamar Jackson problem only or a Ravens problem only. It's a mix of both. This is probably the worst receiver core in the whole entire National Football League. So Lamar Jackson doesn't have a lot to work with. Now, when you evaluate him individually in these playoff games, Pro Football Focus grade, 47, 63, 68, and 49, respectively, in his 4 playoff games. Those aren't good. Now, in the Tennessee game, yeah, I thought he played pretty well. But the problem with Lamar Jackson right now is Spencer, I feel like week after week you're telling me Lamar Jackson played well. There were a few plays where he didn't. But Spencer, to win in the playoffs, we got to eliminate those few plays. We got to eliminate when he doesn't see Marquise Brown open in the end zone. We got to eliminate a 100-yard pick six. And then he'll start winning.
No, I agree. And that's funny that you brought that up because that was one of the things that I was going to bring up as well. Because I had been saying that to you and I really sat back and thought to myself, that's not okay. Yeah, I can't just make that excuse for Lamar Jackson because, that one play is what costs you a game. And if you're going to make that one play, then you can't win. Like, you can't win if you're going to make that play. And that's one of the things I've noticed in games. And, Lamar Jackson, he can make that mistake against the Jaguars. They're going to be fine, And he made that mistake against the Titans. They were fine because the defense is terrible. He made that terrible interception, but they were able to recover from it because the defense was awful. But against the Bills, you're not going to recover from that. Against the Steelers, you're not going to recover from that terrible interception. So, we had that discussion earlier this week, Evan, and I really sat back and thought about it because, in the moment I wanted to say, oh, Lamar Jackson, he played great outside of one interception, but you can't say that because he didn't play great. That one interception cost them the game, and he's playing to win the game, not to throw 20 great good passes and lose because of a terrible decision. So that's something that I've noticed. And against a lot of the better teams, one of the reasons we've seen him struggle is because of those turnovers. So I really like that point that you made there, Evan.
Thank you. We see Tom Brady. What's he doing right now? At age 43, or, when he's up in the 40s, he's making a lot of big plays this year, but like last year, 2 years ago, he wasn't necessarily making the big-time throws, the amazing plays, but he was avoiding the mistakes that lose you the game. And that's why he was winning the game and winning six Super Bowls.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And so this whole thing for me, I think I'm coming from a spot of the Ravens and Lamar Jackson need to change something. And do I think they can? I think they can. I think Lamar Jackson can improve in his decision-making. He's improved every year in his career. I think he can get better in these areas. I think the Ravens can put better pieces around him. But right now, as Lamar Jackson currently is, and as the Ravens are currently constructed, they are going to have a difficult time winning in the playoffs because when they're put off kilter, they really, really, really struggle. And I think it's all about Lamar Jackson. He's going to get more comfortable, and we hope he gets more comfortable and the Ravens put better pieces around him. But right now, Lamar Jackson cannot make those decisions. So do I think the Ravens and Lamar Jackson can get there? I do think that. But right now, they're going to struggle if they cannot get these things fixed. All right. So we actually agreed there more than we thought we would. Yeah.
Surprisingly.
I knew that we thought, because I know you thought that we were going to sit here and have an argument, but I sat back and I was like, let's just think about this logically. What is the best way to think about this? And I think that's the best way. I think Lamar Jackson can get better. I think the Ravens can get better. But right now, as currently constructed, there's reason to be concerned. There's reason to be concerned about Lamar Jackson. He's got to fix some things. And there's a reason we're seeing Josh Allen playing next week instead of Lamar Jackson. And those decisions, the inability to adjust is one of those reasons. So definitely being a concern there. So, yeah.
But it's worth saying. Lamar Jackson,
yep.
I put him in that tier 2. He's probably going to be my 6th ranked quarterback going into next year, with among the likes of Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. That's a great class to be in. But I just can't put him on the tier of a Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, these elite.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I would agree with you. This is the last thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to the next segment. But I think we were talking about this earlier in the week. Where do we rank Lamar Jackson? And after that game, I kind of thought about it a little more. I'd probably more rank him with those second guys. And I do think against the better teams, he is one of the best. Like, I would put him in that top tier. I think he against the worst teams in the league, I put him in that top tier because he's able to. They don't put him off kilter. But I would say just overall as a quarterback, I think he is more in that second tier. Not a bad thing, but Lamar Jackson, if you've got to win Super Bowls, if you're going to win Super Bowls with the Ravens, you got to adjust. So I think that's all we got to say for that segment. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. And now on to the second one, where we're going to be talking about another thing that's happened quite a bit in the past week, 2 weeks of this NFL offseason for a lot of teams, and that's coaching hires. We've had some major hires over the past week that, some good, some bad. And the first one that we're going to be talking about, I think people have some mixed opinions on, and that is Brandon Staley to the Chargers. He was the Rams defensive coordinator. Evan, do you have any strong thoughts on this one?
Well, a lot of people have strong thoughts, and they don't like this hire. They say, we have Justin Herbert, a young superstar quarterback. We got to get him an offensive mind. But it is worth noting, Brandon Staley was a quarterback at Dayton. So he's a defensive coach, but he can see the game and process it from a quarterback's vision, from their perspective. And I think that's valuable. And with this Chargers roster, a defensive mind. He has a lot of chess pieces to play with. Derwin James, Joey Bosa, they're all over the place. So this is going to be a good defense next year. And now he's only been the coordinator for 1 year. That's kind of a little bit scary. But we all thought Wade Phillips, the Rams defensive coordinator 2 years ago, was a really, really good defensive coordinator. Then he leaves, Brandon Staley comes in, and that Rams defense gets a lot better. So that was a great coordinating year by Staley. I think it's a solid hire. Doesn't blow me away, and I'm not worried if I'm a Chargers fan.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. For the most part, I think I am a little bit concerned. I think there's better guys they could have gotten. I would have rather seen a Brian Daboll come in there with and work with Justin Herbert, because I think this league as a whole, I mean, shifting more and more towards offensive guys. I mean, obviously you got your Bill Belichick's of the world, but I mean, we look at this landscape right now in the playoffs. Even 3 of the 4 guys are clearly offensive guys, and then in the Buffalo Bills, you've got Brian Daboll as your offensive coordinator, who for a lot of teams were looking at them as their head coach, and the Chargers are one of them. So offensive minds are really running this league right now. And so I think that I would have loved to see a Daboll, for example, go there. I agree with you, though. I think Staley can be a solid coach. I think he will come in here and do a good job. I think he can really help out this defense. As you mentioned, has a ton of talent on it. Really struggled to get things fully together in these past couple of years. And we look all the time at the start of the year. They're the paper football champions. They've got talent at every position, everywhere on the field. They need to pull together, and I do think Brandon Staley is a guy that can do that. So I think that I'm kind of on your board. It doesn't blow me away. I think I would have rather seen a Brian Daboll come in there and work with Justin Herbert. But I think if you're a Chargers fan, don't be too upset. Brandon Staley is a guy that you can trust to come in there, kind of like he did with the Rams, solidify the defense, and that is very valuable in the NFL. So I don't love it. I don't hate it. That's my opinion on the Brandon Staley hire. So anything else to add there, Evan? Or
Well, you talk about getting him Justin Herbert a nice offensive mind. That's going to be critical, but you can do that at coordinator. Head coach, they develop the culture. Coordinator, they call the plays. So it's going to be critical to get Justin Herbert the right offensive coordinator. Looks like it's going to be Shane Steichen, who I think's he's fine, but he's not great. He's not special. So but he's good.
Okay,
enough.
so I think we kind of we're on board there. I think I think we kind of think that it wasn't a special hire, but it'll get the job done. I think that there's a lot of potential for Brandon Staley. He's young, and I think he can do a solid job with the Chargers. I'm excited to see what happens next year with them. Got a lot of talent, young quarterback in Justin Herbert, obviously. So very exciting for them. Now, another team that hired a new coach in the past week is Robert Sala, the New York Jets. And so, Evan, do you have any thoughts on the Robert Sala hire?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Favorite hire out there. Robert Sala. If I was going to get a head coach, he's the guy I would get. I just mentioned it's about building a culture, not as the head coach, not the coordinator, head coach, culture. Coordinators, they call the plays. And Robert Sala with San Francisco, he led them to have a very good defense the last 2 years. Schematically, it's not super advanced. It's not a Wink Martindale type in Baltimore. It's that covers 3 Seattle defense that we see all over the league. But when you talk about building a culture, and I don't know these guys, but just when I see him on the sideline, the charisma, that's a guy I want to play for. Robert Sala, I think he can build something special in New York Jets. I think that his ability to relate and connect with his players is going to be critical in turning this franchise
Yeah,
around.
I think we always talk about, I mean, exactly, culture, and that's something that I made a segment on that is very, very important in the NFL. I mean, we look at the teams that are turning things around right now, and Ron Rivera and the Washington football team. I mean, look, the culture, it changed. I think Robert Sala is definitely a guy that can do that. I did like this hire for the Jets. I think, as you said, he's a guy that will turn around the culture, and he will do a great job coaching these guys up. And I think that this is a team that really needed a breath of fresh air. They were stuck with Adam Gase for a while. Robert Sala is definitely better than Adam Gase. So I think that this is the perfect guy that's going to come in there when you got a ton of cap space, a ton of draft picks, and maybe a potential trade for a superstar quarterback who we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But he's that perfect guy to come in there, bring everything together, run that defense as we talked about, bring a new culture in. I think I really like this hire because, as you said, the charisma, everything, Robert Sala brings it. So I like it. I like the hire for the New York Jets. And then, or anything else to add there, Evan, or are you good on that?
I think it looks like he's bringing a really nice set of coaches, coordinators, skill position coaches. It looks like he's assembling a really nice staff there in New York. That's critical. Not only the head coach, but the other coaches to go along with it.
Yep, for sure. So that's definitely important also, because you also got to have the guys that are running the offense and the defense as well. So I like that a lot. It sounds like we both like that hire quite a bit. And then next, we're going to talk about Urban Meyer. And I think this was maybe the biggest story of the week in terms of coaching hires, or the past couple weeks in terms of coaching hires. Urban Meyer, the Jaguars signed him. I'm going to talk first here, Evan, because I've been handing it off to you quite a bit right off the start. So I'm going to talk first. And I think the question that I was asking myself is, can Urban Meyer and this Jaguars team turn things around? Are they in a position to do so? And we know they have the number one pick in this year's draft. Obviously means they were not very good. They have not been very good I guess they had the round in 2017. They just have not been a consistently good franchise for a while. But I think they are ready to change that. I mean, I just talked about it, number one pick overall in this year's draft, Trevor Lawrence. That means you're going to get Trevor Lawrence unless they really unless they do something crazy. I don't think they should. I don't think they will. So it looks in all odds, Trevor Lawrence will be the quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars next year. And we know how important quarterback play is to teams. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a generational prospect. I mean, I was doing my scouting report on him earlier this week, and it is crazy how good he is. I mean, he's just positive. Really not many flaws there for Trevor Lawrence. I think he will come in and instantly be a top 10 guy. I have confidence saying that. He is that talented. He is that good of a prospect. So I think we look around the NFL, and what is the dynamic of the top teams? What do we see that's almost consistent for most of them? And that's the coach and the quarterback. You got to set those things in place. And the Jaguars just did that. Urban Meyer, we know he's been out of coaching for a while, but he had a lot of success in college. And I think he could really do a great job turning around this culture, as we talked about in the Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence, similarly, we talk about coaches being important to culture. So are quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are the leaders of an offense, a leader of a team. And I think Trevor Lawrence did a great job at that with Clemson. I think he can do that here with Jacksonville. You got a ton of cap space. Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence, these guys can really help turn this franchise around.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. Urban Meyer, him and Robert Sala, they'd be my two top guys I would want to hire. Throw Lincoln Riley in there as well. And then, Eric Bieniemy, Brian Daboll. But I do have some concerns with Urban Meyer. So he walked away from Florida a few years ago to spend more time with his family. Then he went to Ohio State. And he retired and left Ohio State because of health concerns. And now he's in the NFL. So why am I supposed to believe that in 4 to 5 years he won't walk away from the NFL like he did Florida, like he did Ohio State? And here's the other thing. The reason he left Ohio State was because it was very visible. He was drained by stress. And he had some health concerns in there as well, very serious. And just a reminder, this team went 1-15 last year, the Jaguars. The team he's inheriting, the team that stressed him out so much, went 13-1. Not sure how that's going to work. Now, my third concern, and this is a pretty standard one for a college coach. He's never coached in the pros, and I don't think schematically it's necessarily a major problem, but you got to remember, you're talking to 53 people that are driving to the stadium in a Lamborghini, not these young college kids who are going to do whatever you say. Nick Saban didn't work in the pros. People think he's the greatest college coach of all time. So it's a difficult transition. I think Urban Meyer can make it, but I'm just highlighting there are some concerns. This is not a surefire, 100% locked and loaded, he's going to win a championship in Jacksonville. Now, they do have a lot of nice young talent. As you alluded to, Trevor Lawrence, who day one will be a top 10 quarterback, probably will be a top 5 quarterback at many points in his career. And you have some nice young talent. C.J. Henderson, corner. James Robinson, running back. DJ Chark. And I'll throw this out as well. Michael Thomas. Things in New Orleans are a little bit skeptical for the slant man.
I knew you wanted to say that.
He was playing through injuries. Yeah, I want to say that. But he just got ankle surgery. So the Jaguars, how about you bolster that receiver core? DJ Chark, Michael Thomas, Laviska Shenault, thrown to by Trevor Lawrence? Ooh, okay. Just give up that 19th pick, take on Michael Thomas. You have a ton of cap space. Urban Meyer has worked with him before at Ohio State, so that's a real possibility.
Yeah, I like a lot of the points you made there, especially. I do agree with some of your concerns. I mean, as you talked about, the commitment. I mean, he left these places that he was coaching just, obviously, as you said, because he was stressed out, because he was wanting to spend more time with his family. And, I mean, part of building a culture in the NFL is building something. And, I mean, sure, if he sticks around for 2 years, 3 years, I mean, you can maybe, gain some momentum. But, I mean, a lot of teams that we're seeing now, they got young head coaches that were like, okay, this is the future of this franchise, Kevin Stefanski is one of those guys. We're like, okay, we're set in. We have Kevin Stefanski. And a couple of years ago, I mean, Sean McVay has similar things. You got young coaches that, and I think that's another thing that Brandon Staley, you got this guy, he's going to be there for a while. He can be there for a while. Lincoln Riley, he's a guy that, I mean, this Jaguars team, let's be honest. We were talking about their future. They're not going to win a Super Bowl next year. They're probably not. So I think that there is some concerns. I do think that Urban Meyer can help at least turn this franchise around. I would love to see him stick around for a while. But if he leaves 2 years into the process, then the Jaguars got to find a new guy. Trevor Lawrence is going through another coach. That could be a little bit of a concern. So I like your point there, Evan. And yeah, I think this team, though, as I mentioned, they're in a position to turn things around, go out, grab a guy like Michael Thomas, as you said, with that extra cap space. Trevor Lawrence. They've got a bunch of draft picks in coming years as well. So I like the Jaguars situation. I think you do as well. Do you have anything else to add about that one, Ev?
Wouldn't be surprised if Urban Meyer walked away in 3 years. Wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars were in the Super Bowl in 3 years.
Totally agree.
It's a wide range of outcomes.
Totally agree. But if you're a Jaguars fan, a lot to be excited about. So be excited for your team. That's what I got to say. Excited to watch Trevor Lawrence play there as well. So then that was our segment on coaching hires. Those were the major coaching hires. Again, Brandon Staley. Me and Evan were both, we thought it was a solid hire. He's a guy that can be there for the future, really build a culture. Robert Sala, me and Evan both really like the hire, can build a culture. And then Urban Meyer, we like the hire, but there's a little bit of concern, as we talked about, wide range of outcomes. So those were our thoughts on the coaching hires. We will be seeing, it's the Texans and the Falcons, I believe. Am I correct?
Nope. Texans and Eagles.
There you go. That's right. Oh, yeah, the Falcons hired their guy already, Arthur Smith, right?
Yep.
So Texans and Eagles, we'll be on the lookout for that. Excited to see who they hire. But that's our segment on the coaching. And speaking of the Texans, there's a lot of drama in that organization right now. And it's not just about the coaching hires. Well, it is a little bit about the coaching hires, but part of it is their star quarterback, Deshaun Watson, who reportedly is getting very upset with the Texans organization. There's been rumors going around about a potential Deshaun Watson trade to several different teams. He wants out of Houston. He quoted on Twitter that his anger level was at a 2 and he took it to a 10 due to, first, Bill O'Brien trading away DeAndre Hopkins, who's one of the best receivers in the NFL, for David Johnson and a second-round pick. And now they weren't hiring the guys he wanted to hire. He didn't have the say in the things he wanted to have the say in. So there's just kind of been an anger with Deshaun Watson building up. He's not happy. They're not winning. It's a bad organization. And so teams, now there's been a growing sense in the league that Deshaun Watson isn't going to be a Houston Texan next year, and he's going to be traded to another team. He's going to be out of Houston. And so me and Evan today are going to be looking at the teams that we think are the best places for a guy like Deshaun Watson to go. And I think the first place that we're going to talk about is the where all the buzz is going on in the past couple of days. It's the New York Jets. And Evan, do you have your thoughts on what about the Jets as a suitor for Deshaun Watson?
So we know that Deshaun Watson is extremely valuable. If Laramie Tunsil is worth 2 first-round picks, just imagine how many first-round picks Deshaun Watson's worth. Probably 14. And the Jets have the ammunition to go and get Deshaun Watson. They have a ton of draft picks. They have Sam Darnold if you want him, I guess. They have some nice young players, but a lot of draft picks. But if Deshaun Watson did go to the Jets, and they gave up some draft picks to get him, that's not a playoff team. The same problems that Deshaun Watson had in Houston with not a great wide receiver core by the end of the year. Horrible offensive line. Horrible defense. Just getting burnt alive. Those same problems are also in New York. But I do like what Joe Douglas is building there and Robert Sala, as we talked about before. So that's more of a long-term destination. That's not a get Deshaun Watson and you're playing in the Super Bowl next year. That's get Deshaun Watson, build a little bit, add some pieces, make some trades, reorganize your roster, and then in 3 or 4 years, then maybe you're contending in the playoffs.
Yeah, I like your points there. I was originally going to disagree with you in terms of you saying that I thought you were going to say that it wasn't a good place for him to go because of those same issues, and I do think those issues will still exist. But as you talked about, I like Joe Douglas, what he's doing there. They hire Robert Sala. I think people are underrating a little bit this Jets franchise's future. I mean, this team. I mean, they just got Mekhi Becton. He's one of the best young left tackles in the NFL right now, which is very valuable for the Jets right now. Got a defense that's going to only continue to grow. You got Robert Sala who's coming in there, and we've seen how destructive Adam Gase can be to a team. So, Robert Sala is going to be much better. And you got a ton of cap space, and as you said, they have the ammunition to go out and get a guy like Deshaun Watson. And I agree with you that they're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl in Deshaun Watson's first year with the Jets. But I think that's okay for the Jets. I mean, you're not going to every day be able to go out and get a guy like Deshaun Watson. So if the Jets feel like they can go out and get him, they should get him. And I do think they're one of the teams that can get him. But as you mentioned, they're not a team that's going to win a Super Bowl the first year. But they are a team that can get their guy, continue to build around him. It's looking like a better organization right now than the Texans were. It's a mess in Houston. So I think that it would be a solid place for him to go. Do you have anything else to add for the Jets there, Ev?
No, not really. I mean, a trade package, the question for Houston is, would you want Sam Darnold when you're getting Deshaun Watson? Would you want to flip him with a ton of draft picks? But I don't know what Houston wants. Yeah,
I think that, as you said, that package could go a lot of ways, depending on, as you said, what Houston wants. But one thing is for sure, Jets are one of the teams that does have the ammunition to go out and get a guy like Deshaun Watson, but they aren't necessarily a team that could win a Super Bowl right away, and maybe that's what Deshaun Watson wants. But the second team that we're going to be talking about is a team that I said it, they could go out and win a Super Bowl if they got Deshaun Watson. And that's the Miami Dolphins. And I talked about this in an Instagram post that I made a week or two ago. And I said that if the Miami Dolphins were able to acquire Deshaun Watson, I would pick them to win the Super Bowl next year. And I talked about this because, one, this team has the assets. They're right now behind the Jets, I believe, the second odds-on favorite to go out and get Deshaun Watson. They have the ammunition. They've got the third pick in this year's draft. And they've also got, I believe it's the 18th pick in this year's draft. So they have the picks. They've got another young quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa that I'm sure the Texans might have some interest in. So they have the ammunition, as we talked about, to go out and get a guy like that. But they're also one of the few teams that has that ammunition that can also go out and win a Super Bowl next year. This Miami team, they really turn things around. Look at Brian Flores, the culture he's built in Miami, that defense. And I know the offense is not, the pieces are not great. The offensive line is not fantastic. The weapons are not fantastic either. But we look at what Deshaun Watson just dealt with, a terrible, head coaching situation, and weapons. They were fine, but he didn't really have an offensive line, and he led that offense to be one of the more explosive passing offenses in the NFL. So I think Deshaun Watson could come into Miami, turn this offense into an offense that you actually could be scared of, and a defense. You have a defense that's one of the best in the NFL. So I think this team could be very scary. So I like this. I would love to see Deshaun Watson go to the Miami Dolphins. I think this is my favorite place for him. I would love to see him here. I think this team would be a contender immediately with Deshaun Watson. What do you think of?
Yeah, if they got Deshaun Watson, to me, they'd probably be co-favorites in the AFC alongside the Kansas City Chiefs. Because right now, the weakness of the football team, and Spencer, we talked about this, the internet got a little bit sensitive, got a little bit mad at us for saying that the Dolphins should get rid of Tua and draft a quarterback, but Deshaun Watson would be better than drafting a quarterback because we saw the defense. Phenomenal in every way. That was one of the three best defenses in the league. Offensively, there's some nice pieces there. Devontae Parker, Mike Gesicki. So Tua had stuff to work with. But Deshaun Watson, he elevates the offense. He makes plays on his own. He makes plays when there's nothing there to be had. And if they had a guy that was making plays when there was nothing there to be had, they would have definitely been in the playoffs last year. And there's a chance they could still be alive in the playoffs as we speak in the AFC Championship game. So Deshaun Watson would be a massive addition for Miami.
I agree. So we share the same sentiment there. The Dolphins, I would agree with you. I think they would be in a position to compete with the Chiefs. They've got the explosiveness that Deshaun Watson brings to an offense, plus that defense. It would be a very, very scary thing for the rest of the league. They'd be set up very well for the future. Young Deshaun Watson and a young team that's only going to continue to get better. So I would love that pickup for the Dolphins. As you said, it would be even better than drafting a quarterback, which we said they should do. And their weakness on their team right now is Tua. So, or quarterback in general. So I like that. I would like that a lot. I think that is my favorite trade destination for Deshaun Watson. I think that would really shake up the league next year. They'd be immediate contenders. And then another team that I think is in a similar boat is the San Francisco 49ers. Evan, do you have any opinion on a Deshaun Watson trade to the 49ers?
Yeah, well, that would be big for the 49ers, obviously. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's somewhere around the 20th to 25th best quarterback in the football right now. Tua isn't even there, so I think it would be a bigger upgrade for Miami than San Francisco.
Yep.
But Garoppolo hasn't been able to stay healthy, hasn't been able to stay on the field. Now, the only thing I question is, with that Kyle Shanahan offense, it's easy for a guy like Garoppolo, who's not an elite quarterback by any means, to look good, to execute the throws, execute the offense well. I don't know if that offense will really be maximized as much as it could be when you add a playmaking quarterback like Deshaun Watson. For example, Andy Reid's offense, that allows you to run around and make plays on your own. Kyle Shanahan's offense, it's more built on easy completions, easy throws. So I don't think Deshaun Watson would be as big of an upgrade for San Francisco as Miami. but they'd definitely be in the conversation of best team in the NFC if they were able to acquire Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say right before you said that. I was going to say I would pick this team to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. I mean, when you look at what's going on over there, I mean, you got the Seahawks who, I don't know, they've had some shakiness in terms of their offense. There's Russell Wilson, but their defense has struggled a little bit. We don't really know. The Saints, their cap situation is a nightmare. Drew Brees is going to be gone. The Rams, I don't really trust Jared Goff. So, I mean, the Packers, we know Aaron Rodgers, they're always going to be a threat. But, I mean, we know this San Francisco team made the Super Bowl 2 years ago with Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, they were derailed by injuries. It was not a usual, typical season. This is not going to be the regular season for the 49ers. They've got Kyle Shanahan, all these guys are going to get healthy next year. And then you add Deshaun Watson, who I agree with you. He's not going to elevate an offense quite to the point that he would on the Dolphins because, on the Dolphins, they would fully use Deshaun Watson's ability. And I don't know how much they would fully maximize what Deshaun Watson can do in the 49ers system. And Jimmy Garoppolo can do just enough in that system. But there would be several plays throughout the game that Deshaun Watson would make that just simply Jimmy Garoppolo could not make. And I think that would be the difference in winning a Super Bowl for the 49ers. When we just think about it, Jimmy Garoppolo 2 Super Bowls ago missed a touchdown that was, that could have won them the game. Do you think Deshaun Watson's going to miss that throw? So just little things like that, plays all throughout the game that Deshaun Watson can make. I think that I would pick the 49ers to make the Super Bowl at least if they were able to acquire Deshaun Watson, just because, you look at the rest of the NFC, I think they could be a dangerous team next year. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on that, Ev?
Yeah, just to be clear on that point, Kyle Shanahan, a lot of easy completions. And if you're just having the quarterback do a lot of easy completions, you don't need an elite quarterback to do that. Garoppolo can do that fine, but I agree. It's those few plays Deshaun Watson will make that will elevate that team's ceiling.
Yeah. So those were the 3 teams that I thought were, the first 3 teams I wanted to talk about. Evan, did you have any other major teams that you thought would be the best fitting spots for him?
Not that I can think of right now. New Orleans, they don't have enough money to do that. That's not happening. I think Miami, that would just be such a great spot for him. They have draft picks. They have Tua if the Texans wanted him. And they're a quarterback away. So Miami's clearly the best spot for me.
Yep, I agree. I think I could see a couple other teams. Maybe the Panthers want to make a move on him. The Bears. One of those teams, maybe we can see Deshaun Watson go back to the Bears, even though the Bears could have had him 3 years ago if they just, did not pick Mitch Trubisky.
But I don't know if the Bears have the draft capital to go out and get him. I don't think they do.
I agree with that. So there's a lot of other players, but I think the 3 teams we just talked about, I think, are teams that could certainly make a move, especially the Jets and the Dolphins. I think those teams are the teams that have the most things to play with, pieces to offer that I think the Texans would be, very interested in. So I think that those would be the 3 teams that I would like to see Deshaun Watson go to the most, and I think where he would make the most immediate impact. So, yeah, I think that was what we thought on the Deshaun Watson situation. And then on to our final segment. We are 40 minutes in, so thank you if you are still listening. And we're going to be talking about some more quarterbacks. I mean, we just talked about the Jets, the Dolphins, the 49ers, maybe some teams that need quarterbacks. Well, if they can't get Deshaun Watson, then we're looking at maybe a quarterback in the draft. So we're going to be talking about the notable teams in the draft and whether or not they should take a quarterback. This segment is to QB or not to QB. And the teams that we're going to be talking about are the Jaguars, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Falcons, the Eagles, the Broncos, the Washington football team, and the Steelers, starting with the Jaguars. And I think we all know the Jaguars are taking a quarterback. We talked about it earlier. They should take a quarterback to QB for the Jaguars. They need to take one. Trevor Lawrence can be their guy. He can help turn this franchise around. when you got a guy like Lawrence, you can't pass him up. And Minshew, he's fine, but not the answer at quarterback. Lawrence will be phenomenal. They need to take him, and if they don't, I think they make a mistake.
Yep, the opportunity of a lifetime having the number one pick, especially when a guy like Trevor Lawrence is available at the quarterback position. And you liked Minshew before the season, but liking Minshew means you have him as the 22nd best quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, day one, second on the NFL field, he's already a top 10 quarterback. So
yeah,
easily
potential to be the best quarterback in the league too. So you can't pass up on that. I don't think we're going to talk too much about that. I think everyone in the world is assuming that they are going to take a quarterback, and that is the right decision. So Jaguars, they shall take a quarterback in the draft. And then the second team we're going to be talking about, we just talked about them in the Deshaun Watson segment, and that is the New York Jets. And I think that the Jets should draft a quarterback, 2 QB for the Jets, because I made a video on this actually, talking about why they need to take a quarterback, because these guys at the top of the class this year are some of the better quarterback prospects you're going to see, and you're not going to, the Jets, they have an opportunity here to take a guy. Sam Darnold, that's what some people make the argument, they should keep Sam Darnold and, take Penei Sewell or something like that at that spot. But I just don't think that's the right move for them. I think when you have the opportunity to get a guy like Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, one of these guys that's going to go at the top of the draft, you have to take it. Those are guys that are going to be the future of their franchise. I can see them winning a Super Bowl with those guys. Sam Darnold, not so much. So the Jets, in my opinion, need to take a quarterback for their future. Evan, what do you think?
This one was a little more difficult for me. Now, okay. I've been a Sam Darnold backer. But I'll say to QB, take a quarterback. Just because you're at that number 2 spot. Now, Sam Darnold, Michael LaFleur is the new Jets offensive coordinator. He comes from San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, according to a lot of reports, really liked Sam Darnold. I could really see him fitting in this style of offense.
Interesting.
And we all know what happens to a quarterback or any player when Adam Gase is no longer their head coach. Look at Ryan Tannehill. Look at Kenyon Drake. Look at literally any player that has played for Adam Gase. They get better when he walks out the door. So I think there's hope for Sam Darnold, but I would still take a quarterback. Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, whoever you like here.
Yep, I agree. And as you mentioned, I think Sam Darnold, he could go somewhere. He could maybe bounce back. We've seen it with Ryan Tannehill and such. And I recognize that he's not been in a position to succeed with the Jets for a while now. But, Sam Darnold, he's got a lot of issues that they aren't just because of Adam Gase. He's got some issues. He doesn't have anything special. I talked about that on my video also to make up for those issues. He's not a great, phenomenal athlete. He doesn't have, a cannon arm. So I just think that it's best for the Jets right now to move on from Sam Darnold. I would be open to seeing him go somewhere else, but you got the opportunity to take one of those guys, you got to take it. So Jets, 2 quarterback. They shall take a quarterback in this draft, whether it be Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, or Justin Fields. Then the third team that we're going to talk about is the Miami Dolphins. We've overlapped these teams, both of these teams, and I think we've got a lot of similar sentiments to when we were talking about them with the Deshaun Watson trade. I think the Dolphins should draft a quarterback this year. Me and you both made a video on that. So you guys can check those out right here or right here, and then I'll put Evans right after that. So you can click on those as you want. But I think the Dolphins need to draft a quarterback because you guys might be wondering, what about Tua? Why don't you give him the time to grow? But Tua hasn't shown what I've wanted to see from him. He hasn't been, the as advertised pro-ready guy that we thought he was going to be coming into the year. And he was a guy that we thought was going to come in and be, a solid quarterback right off the bat. Not going to have too much upside. He doesn't have a great arm. He's not super mobile or anything like that. But we thought he was going to be solid, and he hasn't been solid. He's been the limiting factor in this Dolphins offense. We talked about it. The quarterback position is the weakness of the Dolphins. So I think when you have the opportunity to get a guy that is going to be, whether it be a Trey Lance, who I think they should take, or, a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson that has that elite ability, that elite upside that Tua is just lacking, the Dolphins need to go get it.
Yeah, complete agreement. It's because people say, why do you bail on Tua when we've seen Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson? Those guys were drafted because of elite physical ability, elite talent, elite tools. Tua has none of those. He was drafted based on decision-making, anticipation, accuracy, and those things show up on day one, and they haven't shown up. So Tua, major concern for me. I would definitely go get a quarterback. This one is easier for me than the Jets one. 2 QB for Miami.
I agree. We both have agreed on that for a little bit. I can see how you can disagree, and I do think Tua can improve. I think he can improve, but I just don't think he has near the upside as some of these guys do. So,
I think Tua, if he were to go to Houston or wherever, he can be a starter in this league. Let's be clear. Am I sold on him as a starter in this league? No, but he can be that. But Miami, we're talking about a team that can win the Super Bowl. We're talking about a team that could be a dynasty with Brian Flores at head coach.
Yep.
So Tua is not going to help you win a Super Bowl, and he's not going to help you be a dynasty.
Yep. We agree there. I know most people are probably going to be like, oh, no, they got to keep Tua. But we don't think so. We think it's time for Tua to be gone. So 2 quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. And then we got the Falcons, who we've gone the first 4 picks in a row here, because I think these are all teams that are notable teams to think about drafting quarterbacks. At the top of this class for sure. And the Falcons are the first team that I'm going to say not to quarterback. Me and you talked about this, Evan, and you kind of convinced me over to the not quarterback side of things. And you talked about the strength of the team was the quarterback. Matt Ryan, he's not ancient. He's not Tom Brady. He can stick around for a decent amount of time. He's competed. The Falcons have competed with Matt Ryan, and he's got a contract that is relatively big. And I think that right now you got the strength of the team, making a lot of money. They could build elsewhere. I think this team still believes that they can compete, or maybe they don't believe, but I think they can still compete with Matt Ryan. So I, in my opinion, do not think they need to draft a quarterback here. I think this potentially could be a trade down spot because a lot of the guys that they could be looking for, they could also get at maybe 11, 10 in the draft also, 12. So maybe a team like the 49ers, for example, trades up and gets a quarterback. But yeah, the Falcons, in my opinion, do not need to take a quarterback here. I wouldn't be shocked to see it, though.
Yeah, a few weeks ago you made a mock draft, and before the video you told me there was going to be one controversial pick. And you had the Dolphins selecting a quarterback and the Falcons selecting a quarterback. And I thought the Falcons selecting a quarterback was a controversial pick. But if you look in the comments, clearly it wasn't. Because, as you mentioned, that I mentioned, the strength of the football team, the quarterback, and the receiving core. And Matt Ryan, I believe he's 36 years old, so he has a few years left, and he has a few big years left on that contract. So if you draft, Zach Wilson, you still have to pay Matt Ryan big money. So you draft a quarterback when either the quarterback's really old or the quarterback stinks. And the quarterback doesn't stink. He's in the top 10 conversation right now. No way. Not to QB.
Yeah. You made me flip on that one, so I agree with you there. I wouldn't be shocked to see them take a quarterback, though. I know there's been some Matt Ryan trade rumors going around, but we'll see. I think there's some... that'll be an interesting pick for sure. What do the Falcons do? Do they end up taking like an edge rusher, maybe reaching a little bit in some people's eyes for a guy like Gregory Rousseau, Kwity Paye? I think there's a lot of ways that this team can go. I mean, maybe take a quarterback, maybe go a linebacker, offensive tackle. I mean, they got a lot of ways they can go. But I think that going quarterback is not the best way to go. So, not to QB for the Falcons. We both agree there. Then, an interesting one here. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles. Evan, what do you think?
To me, this is a messy situation, but I'm going to go not to QB. Just because you have Carson Wentz in-house, who before the season, I believe we both had as a top 10 quarterback. You also have Jalen Hurts, who you have said could and potentially will be a star quarterback in this league. So I know, to me, neither option is great right now. Wentz, the struggles literally just couldn't hit the receiver on the money. Just as simple as that. And Jalen Hurts, I think he's good, not great. I don't think he's a long-term option. Wentz can be a long-term option, but obviously if he plays like he did last year, he isn't. So to me, 2 quarterbacks, you don't need to add a third to that mix, so not to QB.
Yep, I'm going to agree with you. Not to quarterback, not to QB. And the Eagles should spend that pick elsewhere. Go spend that pick on Jamar Chase. Go spend that pick on Devontae Smith. Go spend that pick on Kyle Pitts. I think, Jalen Hurts was a little bit disappointing in his last couple weeks, but I still think he has the ability to be a very good quarterback, a very solid quarterback for the Eagles. And the same thing with Carson Wentz. If we can see him return to form, if he can hit the receivers like he's been hitting them, or he has hit them in the past. So I think that adding another guy, as you said, is a little too messy. And I think the Eagles, one of those guys, could potentially turn out the way they want them to. So I think that adding another quarterback, as you said, just isn't necessary. Better to go out and get a guy that's going to improve this offense. We'll see who they hire as their new coach. That'll be very interesting. I think not to quarterback here for the Eagles. So 2 not to quarterbacks in a row. And then we're going to be talking about a team that supposedly has a guy with Mahomes and Rodgers type ability. I mean, they can't be drafting a quarterback, right, Evan? What do you think?
I may have said some dumb things in the past. Let's try to forget about that. So here's what I think about the Denver Broncos. And this is completely dependent on what happens before them. If you can get one of the 4 top guys, that is Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, then I would quarterback. I would get rid of Drew Lock, who one of us sitting here has said some positively dumb things about. But if you're looking at Mac Jones or lower, I would not take a quarterback. I'm not high on Mac Jones myself. So if you can get one of the top 4, go for it. Because Drew Lock, yes, there's a lot of talent there, somewhat exaggerated a little bit, but he's not really hit that talent. He's not been what I expected him to be. But also, I'd rather have him than Mac Jones because I'm not high on Mac Jones myself or any of the other quarterbacks.
Yep, I agree. I totally agree. I was going to say the exact same thing. If they can grab one of those top 4 guys that, as you talked about, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, they're not going to get Trevor Lawrence, let's be honest. If they can get one of those guys, go for it. Pull the trigger. Get your future in him. I think Drew Lock does have some ability. I think it can still be a little bit unlocked. I don't think he's a lost cause. So I wouldn't hate if they didn't take a quarterback. I think there's still some holes on that roster that need to be filled. But go out, get yourself a guy that really I think has a much better chance of being your guy than Drew Lock does. So Broncos, it's kind of a little bit of a contingency situation. But I will say, Evan, what do you want to say?
So you may ask, why do we say draft a quarterback and replace Tua and not Drew Lock? Well, first of all, the Miami Dolphins have the 3rd pick, so they're guaranteed to be able to pick one of the top 4 guys. So if Mac Jones was the choice for the Dolphins, I'd say stay with Tua. He was literally the starter. Mac Jones was the backup. So also another reason why Mac Jones not as high on. And also, we mentioned that talent, that ability. And we're talking about that arm strength, that athleticism, that high-end play. Can you be like a Aaron Rodgers? Basically, the ability is, can you be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the game? Because yes, there's been top 5 quarterbacks who don't have the elite physical tools, but those guys are more the exception than the rule. Drew Lock, even though he hasn't hit that ceiling, and he may never hit that ceiling, he still has that high-end talent that makes you want to give him another season. Give him another season. Similar thing with Sam Darnold. But Tua was supposed to be great, doesn't have that high-end talent, so there's not like that hidden talent that you're still chasing.
Yep, totally. We agree. So we agree on the Broncos. I think there's a 2 QB, but with some contingency on that. As long as there are one of those 4 guys on the board, I would be totally open to the Broncos drafting a quarterback. If not, I would not recommend drafting Mac Jones here at number 9. I've seen some people actually mock Mac Jones to the Broncos at number 9. Not a fan of that. But yeah, that's what I think of the Broncos. And then another team that picks, I believe, 3 picks later, the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not sure. We talked about them a little bit with the Deshaun Watson thing, and I think that this is a team that I would like to see draft a quarterback. And I know they have Jimmy Garoppolo, but as we talked about earlier, can't stay on the field. I don't think he has much upside, and he's maybe a 23rd best quarterback in the league. But I would like to see the 49ers draft a quarterback, and this is a team that I think has the potential to maybe trade up into that Falcons spot, for example, or maybe into, if the Dolphins wanted to trade down, if one of these teams earlier in the draft wants to trade down, whether it be the Eagles or one of these teams wants to trade down, I think the 49ers are a team that will bite at that and pick, whether it be a guy like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance or Justin Fields, because these are the guys that, same thing we talked about with Deshaun Watson. I mean, obviously Deshaun Watson's a proven guy, and I would like to see Deshaun Watson go even more there, but these are guys that can add a lot to an offense. They can be your future, and I know Shanahan's offense does not ask a lot, but there's a lot of plays that these guys can make that Jimmy Garoppolo just simply cannot make. So I would really like to see a guy go to the 49ers in the draft, and I think this team is a team that could certainly make a move up to 7 in the draft, maybe 4 in the draft, 3 in the draft to take a quarterback. So what do you think, Ev?
I'm going not to QB, so we disagree here. Now, once again, that being said, if you can get a guy like Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, then I'd probably take a quarterback. But the reality is, San Francisco, unless they trade up, they're not going to be able to take a quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo, he's fine. He can execute that offense. Now, most quarterbacks can execute that offense. Throw Tua in there, I think he can execute that offense. Shanahan, he's a wizard. But I just don't think, like Mac Jones, it's going to be more or less the same as Jimmy Garoppolo. And in fact, I'd rather have Garoppolo. So, not to QB, unless somehow one of the guys falls to you, or you can make a trade up and it doesn't cost you too much.
Okay, I think that's fine. I mean, I think that they, as I talked about, I think they're in a position where they can trade a bit. I know you can't really assume trades and stuff like that. And I do think there's a chance that one of those guys, I think Lance could fall there. I mean, some people do believe he's going to fall there. I personally don't think he will. I don't think he should fall there. But some people do believe he will, and I would not mind. I would actually like the 49ers to take one of those guys just because, I mean, as you talk about, Shanahan's a wizard, and I think he could make the most of these guys. I think he would. I mean, I don't know, but I think they would add to the offense regardless. So I think the 49ers should draft a quarterback, especially if they get one of those top 4 guys. But I would agree with you. I'd be a little more skeptical if they took Mac Jones, and I think he could do a lot. He would probably do a lot of the similar things that Jimmy Garoppolo did there. I was a little bit on the fence, but I lean towards draft a quarterback, and I'd like to see them move up if they can. Then on to our final 2 teams here. A little bit later picking. We're almost at an hour, but the second final team is Washington football team. Evan, do you have any strong thoughts on the Washington football team? What do you think? To quarterback or not to quarterback?
Ooh, this is a tough one because I have literally no clue who might be their quarterback to start next season. Alex Smith, is he going to retire? Is he going to come back? If he comes back, obviously he's not the long-term option, but could he be just a one-year stopgap? Taylor Heineke was phenomenal in the playoffs, but I don't think we can expect that for a whole season or, starting level play for a whole season, although maybe give him a chance to compete, give him a chance to be the backup, whatever. So, and I don't like, they're picking, I think in the 19 or late teens, early 20s, whatever. So it's going to be Mac Jones might be the best guy available. And I don't really like Mac Jones that much. I've been talking about how Tua, I would move on from him. Well, Mac Jones was the backup to Tua. So this one's tough for me. I would say you would have to trade up for me. Trade up in the draft, then I think you can draft a quarterback. But where you're currently sitting, you could take a flyer on Mac Jones, but I just don't see that big upside. So I'm kind of conflicted with this one.
I can totally see that. I said that I almost would have rather seen the Washington football team miss the playoffs and get a pick around 9 or 10 in the draft. And I know whatever. I mean, you got some playoff experience, which is good. It's good. But I mean, I would have rather seen them be in a position to get, Trey Lance or Zach Wilson or one of these guys, rather than be in a position where they're 99% chance not going to be there. They're going to have Mac Jones sitting on the board. I do think they should draft a quarterback, though. I think, as we talked about, there's uncertainty at the quarterback position. Realistically, Taylor Heineke is he's not their future. I mean, I think I think it was a performance that we can't expect more than once, really. And Mac Jones, he's a guy that I think would come in here and be their future. I think that's something the Washington football team needs. They're a team that's building something as a team, a young team. I think Mac Jones, I don't love him. I don't think he's a phenomenal player in terms of, I don't think he has the upside as some of those top guys. But I think he is still a solid quarterback. I think that he can, be that young quarterback on this team. He has a lot of nice aspects of his game. He's a phenomenal deep passer, a very accurate passer as well, and moves between his reads very cleanly. I like a lot of things with Mac Jones, and I think he would provide a lot to this offense. I think totally he could do a lot with his team, give Terry McLaurin a quarterback, and really give this team that is moving forward their guy. And as you said, I would rather see this team trade up. I think that would be the best choice for them. I think that's what I would like to see them do the most. I'd rather see them go out and get a guy like Lance. Then I would be even more high on this team next year. But I think that if they have the opportunity to take Mac Jones, I would like to see them take Mac Jones. Any other thoughts, Ev?
Well, Spencer, you made a video saying Mac Jones is not a first-round pick. And now you're saying he should be drafted in the first round.
Okay. Yeah. So I made that video and I've kind of turned myself on that. I was more making that video based on the fact that I don't think he belongs in the conversation with the top 4. I've a little bit changed my opinion. I still am not as high on him as a prospect as some other people are, but I think for some teams it makes sense as an option. And the Washington football team is one of those teams. I mean, you got a young team that I do think Mac Jones can still come in and be a solid quarterback, as we talked about. He does a lot of things very well, and I think Washington is one of those teams that could really use him. And so I think, as we talked about, I don't love Mac Jones as some other people do. I mean, a lot of people think Mac Jones is even better than Trey Lance, and those guys, I personally do not. And in my opinion, I have shifted my opinion a little bit since that video. I think Mac Jones is better. I've watched even more of Mac Jones. So my main thing with Mac Jones is that I don't think he's quite to the level of some of those other guys, but I do think there's a team like Washington that could really use him. So I think it's a toss-up. I think I would like to see him get a new quarterback in there. I wouldn't mind them trading up. I think this is a very interesting decision. I like what they're building there in Washington. So I could see this going either way, but I would say 2 quarterback and get a guy for your future in Mac Jones if he's there, or trade up. So, yeah. And then our final team is another team that I think could use Mac Jones, and that's the Steelers. I think they should draft a quarterback. I think that it's time to move off of Big Ben. His contract is massive, and I just don't see him being the guy for them. And I think Mac Jones could really be useful. I think you got a guy that will be on a contract for multiple years, that is cheap and can do a lot of really good things for this team. So I think the Steelers should draft a quarterback. Evan, do you have any disagreements with me there?
No disagreements. I think Big Ben plays one more year.
Okay.
And I think the best move for this team, because personally, I don't like Mac Jones, is to go in free agency.
Okay.
I think that's the spot to go. But if they took Mac Jones, that's fine with me. Even though I'm not a big Mac Jones fan, you need to have that succession plan after Big Ben.
Yep.
And this will probably be his last year.
Yep, I agree. I think this pick is not about me loving Mac Jones, but it's more about you need a new guy. You need a guy that can come in and be the guy for the future. And I think Mac Jones is a solid player. I think he's solid. I do not think he's phenomenal like some people do, but I think he's a solid player. He can come in here and be the successor to Big Ben, do a lot of things that he does, that Big Ben does, and has more, a ceiling that he can add to a decent amount of this offense in terms of just great passing down the field, a nice read, nice guy with his reads. So, yeah, that's our take on the Steelers. I think 2 quarterback for the Steelers. You think they should go to free agency, so very interesting there. But that was our 2 QB or not 2 QB segment. So again, Jaguars, 2 quarterback for me. Andrew, Jets, 2 quarterback as well. You thought it was a little bit of a difficult decision, though. Dolphins, 2 quarterback, both of us. We agree. Again, go check out our videos on that if you would like to hear more. And then the Falcons, not to quarterback. We agree there. The Eagles, not to quarterback as well. Just too much going on there. And I got some guys that adding a third is just unnecessary. Broncos, 2 quarterback, despite them having a guy like with Rodgers, Mahomes' ability. I mean, how could you get rid of that guy? And then Washington and the Steelers, both to quarterback, despite you being a little more shaky on Washington. And the 49ers, we disagree. So I think 2 quarterback, you think not to quarterback. So, yeah. So those were our segments. That was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Evan.
Yep, anytime.
I hope you guys enjoyed. We hopefully will be doing more of these in the future. Let us know if you liked them. Let us know if you hated them. Like, dislike, subscribe, whatever. Go check out Evan's channel once again. And until next time, say with me, Evan.
Peace.